Hello and welcome to Streams, brought to you by Good News Broadcasting. This is the podcast where we review and critique popular movies and TV shows on our streaming platforms and explore their themes and see how they may align or conflict with scripture so you can watch with wisdom. If you don't know me, my name is Eamon, and today, as per usual, I'm joined by GMB Director Tom Ward. Thanks for coming, Tom. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. I'm looking forward to this because I like cars. So,
well, spoilers already. Okay. We are looking at something that's a bit different today. We're going to be looking at Car Masters Rust to Riches. And so it is a reality TV series, reality TV program. And so it first premiered in 2018 and there's currently 6 seasons out on Netflix, and it's fairly easy watching, fairly easy viewing. You don't really need to concentrate too hard to understand what's going on. It's that kind of show. But for those who have never seen this before, Tom, just summarize the plot. What is this all about?
Very happy to. Yeah, so it is a car restoration program, as you said. Very simple formula. Each episode has at least one car that goes from basically being a pile of junk to being restored and then custom painted. So the car ends up being worth thousands of dollars more than it did originally. In previous seasons, they worked on an uptrade model where they would restore a car and then trade it for another car that still needed work but had potential to be worth much more after they had worked on it. And they would keep trading up cars this way until they had restored a car that would be worth over 6 figures, and then they would sell it and the staff would have a big payday. In this 6th season, they changed the model a little bit to buying high-end cars like Ferraris and then giving them the kind of Gotham Garage style and then selling them for big bucks. So Gotham Garage is the name of the company, and it's run by Mark, who's the creative guy behind the projects, and he has kind of a ragtag group of mechanics who helped him. And so, yeah, it does feel different than previous seasons. I've watched all of them. You started on season 6, and you messaged me and said, what's it called again? Because you obviously were a bit confused because they're like dealing in Ferraris, and the way I told it to you was they take junkyard, beat-up cars and restore them, so you weren't even sure it was the right program.
I turned it on. I started on season 6, episode 1, and they just start by buying 2 Ferraris. And I'm like, hang fire. I thought this was a rags to riches type thing. I didn't realize this was going to be just riches to riches type thing. And so I was a bit confused. I did text him like, I think I've got the wrong show, because the car show we both like is Rust Valley Restorers. That's on Netflix as well. 2-3 seasons on there. And that was just the best show because it basically just followed this Canadian fella with dreadlocks, a bit of an odd character.
But very likeable.
Very likeable. And he just basically made a bunch of money doing whatever he was doing and bought a bunch of old cars. And he just has this field full of like these old, beat up, rusted cars. And then he just picks one, just brings into the garage, and him and his mates kind of just do it all up, and then they end up selling them or whatever they kind of do with them. And it was just such a good show because you'd see it like a development from these really old beat-up cars to something really nice and beautiful. Whereas this, I hated it from the start. I was like, Ferraris, man. Ferraris.
Hate is a strong word.
No, I think I did. I think I did hate it.
I think Netflix, because they're such a huge company now, I think they just put money into things, don't they? And because, as you say, Rust Valley Restorers, I don't know if it did well, but I think people enjoyed it. And so then they just back other projects. So I've also watched Tex-Mex Motors, which is a similar idea that basically a group of people on the border between Texas and Mexico, they would kind of go into Mexico, get cheaper cars there, then bring them back to the US and then do them up and sell them. And so I always feel like Netflix, if they're onto a winner with something, they're always looking for the new series, whoever it is. I definitely felt like Rust Valley Restorers has not been bettered. I remember the first season watching it and it didn't feel the same. But for me, I like to have programs that are easy listening for your eyes. You know, a program that you can put on and then make a brew, and one of your kids comes in and wants to start telling you about something really important or needs you to look at homework or whatever, you can have it in the background. You can miss bits and it doesn't matter. You don't need to be watching every scene with real intent. You want to see what the car looks like at the start, what it looks like at the end. And so I like to have programs that I can do that with. And so this is easy watching. It doesn't take too many brain cells, and I like cars. So I think it works for that. But I think this season was a little bit odd, I will agree. For me, I loved the scrapyards. I loved them walking around, finding absolute beat-up old cars, and just the knowledge that they've got. That's a 1964 Lincoln. You know, if it was a 1965, we wouldn't want that because that wasn't a good year. But because it's this specific year, and if we do it up and we can find the parts, we can then sell it on. There's something about that restoration that is really appealing to me. I like cars. I like old cars. I also quite like beat-up cars, the kind of patina look as well. So when they started dealing in high-end cars, I thought it lost a lot of its original charm.
And before we dive into some of the nitty-gritty of that and some of the cars that were on this season 6, and we'll kind of look at them and say whether we liked them or not, let's just get the rating out of the way, because I think this is going to be a fairly simple rating for us. And so if you don't know what the rating system is, we rate it on a scale of 1 to 5 based on how safe it is for a Christian to watch. So 1 is basically something that is just terrible. Do not watch this. It's not going to be good for you. Whereas 5 is super safe. Anyone can watch it. So where would you place it on that rating scale?
I think I would give it a 4.5. Its actual rating is 12, and I think that's fair. Because there are a few swear words now and again, but the real swear words, proper swear words, are bleeped out. But there are some lesser grade swear words that some people might find offensive and other people not as bothered by are left in. And they're not there a lot. And so there's nothing in terms of content that is inappropriate. There's nothing that is concerning in terms of what it shows. So I think most Christians would be able to watch this without any issue, really.
I agree. I went 4.9.
Wow, okay.
So I basically
Are you allowed to do the decimal points? Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess I did 4.5.
Yeah, you did.
But that feels like half. That's like 4.5. Whereas you've taken 4.9.
No, I'm saying,
like, how did it miss that final 0.1?
Well, I think because it's a 12. So it's a 12, as you said, and it's because of mild language and occasional sex references.
I think I'd read something that said that they're mild innuendo. I looked on Common Sense Media, and they said there is very light innuendo that would normally go over the heads of some kids. Now, I couldn't think of what they were, but yeah, maybe that's worth just saying, just if people are being really cautious about this. But it is a 12, so it's not for kids.
No, and that's why I'd put it as a 4.9, because I think it's something you can put on.
Sounds like a score you'd get in gymnastics or something. Do you know what I mean?
Gymnastics?
Yeah. 4.975. Like, how just say 5?
No, because it's
Commit.
not 5.
Commit.
It isn't a 5, though, is it? Because 5 is saying anyone can watch it, super safe. You will not have any beef with this whatsoever.
So the 0.1% is for kids.
The 0.1% is for... I know people...
0.1% stopped it being Prince of Egypt.
I know people who, with one swear word, they're going to turn it off.
Agreed.
So, because
if
of
it was
that...
bleeped, would they still?
I don't know.
Okay.
You have to ask them. But the point is that I know they would turn off. So I'm going to give it a 4.9 because I'm not going to say any Christian can watch this and then someone has beef with that. I'm covering my own back here.
Yeah.
I do not want to be sued and liable. I don't want to go to the High Court and have to argue my case for why I gave it.
I love that I'm not accepting your score. I'm like, not having it. I just think you should commit to your score. I've said 4.5.
I have.
You said 4.9. Fine.
That's a commit. I've committed to 4.9.
Okay.
The one beef I did have with this show, and this really kind of put me off, was how some elements were clearly just conversations they were having, and some elements were really scripted. You could tell when something was scripted, and they'd say these lines like, oh yes, we need to take their bumper off. You could tell that they'd probably done it a couple of times, and the production staff weren't happy. Whereas other moments, they are just having this organic conversation, and you can tell that that's the case. And that's the thing I hate about this show.
But yeah, I totally agree with you. I think I felt more with this series than any other that they were trying to generate tension and try to generate drama. So they brought this English guy in, and as you know, the Americans always think the English are baddies. Like in every American film, you see an English person, they're a baddie. And in this one, which is meant to be kind of documentary style, they bring in the English guy who's going to help them find the high-end market. But then they try and build this tension between him and the guy who currently does all the deals and sells the cars when they're finally at the end, but also does all the trades as well. And I thought they tried to build tension there. They tried to build more tension between the main guy, Mark, and other people. And I'd read something online that someone said that none of the deals are actually genuine. I couldn't find anyone online to back it up or say whether that's right or not. That would be disappointing. I think they're real people that are buying the cars, I do think they're told what to say at various points. And yeah, so I think fake drama, scripted, some of the bits are overdubbed as well quite badly. So it cuts away. You see the back of their heads and you can hear that they're saying something that is so much cleaner on the audio. And I think you've gone to a studio, and maybe you have to do that at points, but it made it feel much more manufactured and made up. Even the fact that they're all talking about paydays and, we haven't been paid for ages, we need to get this car sold. And you think, is that the way it works? Does he just not pay them until they actually sell a car? I don't know. It seemed very, very scripted, overdubbed. And I think it's fair to say that Mark, the main guy, is an acquired taste. People online I was looking at said they find that he's constantly sarcastic, and some people don't like that. And so again, I've kind of learned to live with Mark.
I think some of the characters are just kind of crazy. So you obviously got the guy who runs the shop, and he's just really moody and whatever else. And then you've got like one of the workers who's just like this crazy fella who's just like constantly on something. Yeah, called Caveman. Ridiculous, isn't it? And he's just kind of constantly like buzzing and bouncing from wall to wall and really excited to get chopping up to the cars and stuff like that. I just don't know. The characters I just wasn't in. I wasn't like, these are really funny characters or really good characters to get behind. Rust Valley Restorers, they just had good characters that felt genuine, felt organic. It didn't feel as scripted.
I feel like we probably should have reviewed Rust Valley Restorers. I feel bad because I'd hoped that you would like this because I knew that you liked Rust Valley and you like watching a program, and so it's my bad, really. Was there not any of the restorations that you liked? What was your favourite one? So
in the first episode, you had the white and yellow Ferrari, but then they didn't do anything to it because the buyer was just like, I just want like a racing stripe on it. And they were like, this is a waste of time. So that, I hated that. They really didn't go anywhere. And so in that episode, they did the DeLorean, which I was excited for because I thought DeLoreans are cool anyway. I heard they're terrible cars, but they're cool looking. They're kind of futuristic. Obviously, Back to the Future.
Are you a Back to the Future fan?
I like Back to the Future, yeah.
Good.
I don't mind Back to the Future. I don't love it.
Oh, man. Don't get me started. Of course, you haven't seen it if you don't love it.
I've seen it multiple times and I just don't love it. I think it's good, but I think it's overrated. It's like Shawshank.
What have you just done? You literally, and there's no one listening now. It's just me and you in the studio. No one is going to respect your take on any film if you do not recognise that Shawshank Redemption is top 5, likely number 1. It is possibly the greatest film ever made.
I don't think it is. I don't even think it's a top 50, 100 film. I just don't think it's actually that good. I think it's a fine film. Like, it's got a good story and like good friendships and all this type of stuff. Great, whatever. But I just don't think it's that good.
So give me one film that is better than it.
The greatest film ever made, in my opinion, is Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
I love that you're laughing at yourself as you said that, because no one in their right mind. Come on now.
I know everyone's going to think that's an outrageous take. I think it's the greatest film ever made. It changed my life when I was a kid.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with that. I mean, to be so wrong. Please stick with us, though, because, you can take my take. You just can't. I don't just
follow the crowd and do whatever else doing. But anyway, back to the Future and the DeLorean.
Yeah. So
they did the DeLorean, and basically they were told, don't do anything too crazy to it. Just kind of put, a spoiler on the back or whatever else. But they said they want to keep the stainless steel look. And then he kind of wrapped it in this weird red colour, and I absolutely hated it. I thought it looked awful.
Are you serious?
Genuinely, I thought it looked terrible.
That was my favourite one. I've got 3 that I liked in the series. There are a number of ones that, I'm not bothered about the Ferraris, and various kind of sports cars. The Corvette even is all right. I much prefer the kind of old school American. I like old school muscle car. I like trucks and things like that. They didn't have all that much stuff, but I really liked the Roadster, which they took a roulette wheel from a casino and used it as a steering wheel. Class. I mean, I'm not for gambling, and so, I don't like that aspect of it, but I thought it looked very cool, and that was really original. The Ford Bronco, which a company had paid them to turn it into a place where people could try their whiskey. Again, a little bit random, but that looked mint. I thought that was really good. But my favourite was the DeLorean. I love Back to the Future. I liked they took a risk. I thought the red looked really good and made it look much better than it did even originally. So
I just hated it because it reminded me of like Fast and Furious, the films, Like the first kind of 2 or 3
But
of
the
those films.
DeLorean is neither fast or furious. So
But it's just kind of that vibe where you have this really bright colour to it, and then you put a massive spoiler on it, and then you like lower it so it's really low to the ground, and you put massive rims on it. You make it look really odd. You don't make it look like a normal car, and I think I hate that kind of look. And I think that's, again, why I liked about Rust Valley Restorers, is they're not trying to do anything too crazy. They're just trying to restore an old car to what it originally would have looked like. And I like that over taking an old car, doing it up, and then making it crazy by putting some mad sides on it and some, lights underneath and all that type of stuff. That's just not that's not my vibe. That's not what I'm into. But that's fine. Everyone's got their own opinions.
of course, yeah. Yeah, the question is of whether it is restoration, because you're right, you could argue that other programs would actually take a car and restore it to what it once was. And I think lots of people like that, and people want to watch that, and people would probably want cars that were that way. But they never restore any cars back to what they originally were. They always do something different. They will take it from a place where maybe it's old, beat up and a bit rusty. They will fix it up, but then they always add their own flair in a different style. And I think that's very subjective to whether you like it or not. Some people will like the kind of Gotham Garage style, which is a little bit gothic. They really like spiders' webs. They really like the old kind of gothic writing that you'll see on all the cars. Other people won't like it. And so, yeah, you can't win everybody over.
The one I did hate, though, was the hot air balloon. So basically, if you don't know, they wanted to buy the Bronco, which you were saying is for the whiskey tasting. And the guy they were trying to get it off, he basically said, I'll give you the Bronco for free, or for cheap at least, if you basically do something to my hot air balloon basket, which is kind of just such a strange kind of idea and concept. And so they took the basket, because of all the rules around kind of flying and hot air balloons, they couldn't do too much to it. They decided to basically like fabricate, is it a Corvette or something like that, and then attach it to the hot air balloon, and it just looked rubbish.
I agree with you. It didn't look great. But also, they had such limited things they could do in terms of weight and in terms of what they could do to the basket. And so, for me, I just thought, don't bother. It looked bad. And I totally agree with you on that.
Like, I felt like I could have done that.
No, you couldn't have done that. You've lost me now again.
No, they didn't fabricate the Corvette.
No,
another company did. All they did was they attached it to the hot air balloon. And I could have come up with a mechanism to attach it to the hot air balloon and just done that job and got paid for it. So why am I watching Netflix pour millions of pounds into some specialty people who could do special things to do that to a hot air balloon basket? It just annoyed me, to be honest. I watched it, I was infuriated. I was like, what is this?
I'm sorry that I caused such grief to you. We're bringing out you've used the hate word multiple times. Annoyed by it all. So, yeah, it's obviously a fail for you. So you wouldn't recommend it. Although Christians can watch it, you would say don't watch it because it's naff.
I would say watch Rust Valley Restorers over this.
What they found at the end of the series was that obviously the high-end sales weren't working. And so they focused more on legendary cars from films and series like that, and then did them up because they felt like the DeLorean was a real success. That they didn't just renovate that car, as you say, because it was known for not being great. They put a new engine in it and they covered it. But by the end, they did that again with a few other cars. And I think in the future, that's probably what they're going to do. They take the Batman car, or you take the Green Hornet, is it?
Green Hornet, yeah.
Yeah, because you do often associate cars with films. I think that's where they're focusing more. And I think there was probably more money in that for them. I've watched all 6 series. I don't think it was the best series that they've done. I don't like the drama. I don't like the scripted bits. I wish they'd show more of them actually working on the cars. And you said the same thing, actually, that you'll cut to a scene where they're actually taking an engine out, and they give that about 5 seconds. But then they give 3 or 4 minutes to people in the office just arguing around something and making cheesy jokes. And you just think, actually, I want to see more of what's actually happening with the restoration of the cars. I understand that would get too detailed. Like, I don't know cars enough. You know what I mean? To watch it for hours and hours working on things. I understand that they were editing down a lot of content, but I would have liked to see more stuff happen there. But for me, as a guy who owns a modern classic, I can recognise good cars, and I could see these cars being restored to their former glory, and I just think, look, my car belongs on a programme like that. And so that's felt encouraged, yeah.
We're not even going to get started on Tom's car. I don't even want to do it today. If you come into the GMBA office, it comes up at least once a day. Tom thinks his car is better than mine, and we kind of battle
I own a modern classic.
It doesn't mean anything.
Normally, you want to argue that, but you can't.
It doesn't
because
mean anything.
A car that's 20 to 30 years old is classed as a modern classic. I've got 6 years until my Saab 9.3 becomes a classic. So it's going to go from modern classic to classic. It is a car that people recognise. I was out the other night with a couple of my friends, and I was driving them home, and I'm driving up to this road. And you know when you let somebody kind of cross the road, there's a guy holding 2 beers. He's holding these beers. He looks over. I flash him so he can go by, and he looks down at the car, looks up like that. You can't see my face. He's like nodding away, and the boys in the car are like, "Wow, has anyone ever done that before?" I said, "No." Well, let me tell you, it's normally on at least monthly, if not weekly basis. I will get comments. Yes, the average age is over 50 or 60. Yes, these are people who maybe you don't have the greatest cars themselves, but there is a respect for the Saab, and people say, "Oh, you don't see them like that anymore." Oh, no. I get so many comments. I'm not here to diss your Kia Sportage. Lovely car. I'm sure it serves you well. But my car is on a different...
It's not true, though.
Different scale.
It's fake. It's false. And I'll tell you why. If I drove around in one of those 3-wheeler cars from way back in the day...
Hey, classic. Robin Reliant.
People would look at me and they'll go, "Ooh," or they'll go, "That's an interesting car. That's a nice car. Oh, they don't make them like that anymore." Because for them, it brings back memories of a time once was. They're not looking at it and going, "Oh, yeah, that's a really good car. That we love that car." They're only looking at it going, "Oh, I remember so-and-so had that car. Or there was loads of them driving around." You don't see many of them anymore. So it's not because they think your car is actually any good. It's just because it's an old thing that you haven't seen in a long time.
You compared my car to a Robin Reliant.
I did, yeah. And I'll die on that hill.
I don't like to see the colour of jealousy on you. It doesn't look good.
Outrageous. Outrageous. There is no jealousy in my face. Thank you very much. Just for the record, for the listeners.
I just think, as I was watching, though, what came to my mind is how cars are so important to people. I looked online and I found that the average used car, not even a brand new car, but the average used car in the UK at the moment is over £16,000. That is a huge amount of money. And I worked out that from the 5 cars that I've bought, I've spent less than half of that on 5 cars. Now, I know we're going to get into the whole thing of, obviously, if you get a newer car, it's more likely to be reliable. Have I had to spend more on maintenance and getting various cars at various points repaired? Yes. And I know you have to factor that all into it. But I just think as a society, we put too much emphasis on having a good car. I've got friends myself who are like, I could not drive anything that's not a BMW or a Merc. And you've got other people who I know who are paying £350 on a lease each month. And I just think back in the day, it seemed to me that if you were really rich, you'd have a really decent car. And then kind of working down the pay scales, you'd see a car would be a representation of how much money you had. Whereas now, because of leasing, I live in a fairly poor inner city area of Manchester, and the cars are as pristine and as luxury as you'd have in any other part of Manchester because people take leases and they're paying a good chunk of their monthly pay packet to just have a car to kind of keep up with the Joneses. And I don't know where that's come from. I mean, I guess it's always been a status symbol, but it seems to me that it's more than ever before. Lots of people around my end seem to be driving Teslas. Like, what is going on? You know, it's much better for the environment to buy an old Saab 9.3, 9.5 and just keep it on the road. Surely that's better for the environment. So I think I was watching this programme and thought, what I like at the heart is that they are taking something that's going to be thrown out, that is just sat in a ditch, in a scrapyard, and they take it, they restore it and give it a new lease of life, which means that a car that would have just been scrapped is now back on the road. So you don't need a new car. You don't need an electric car. So that's what I like about it.
I think it kind of brings up the real question for us Christians in terms of excess, what we spend our money on. And I know Christians as well who I know how much money they earn. And I look at their car and I'm thinking, I know you're spending a large chunk of your paycheck on this car. Is that wisdom to be spending that kind of money on those types of cars? Ultimately, you have people who say, I can't give, or I can't help others, or I can't get involved in this specific fundraising activity that we're doing as the church or whatever it may be because I've got no money. But then if you track that back, you're going to go, well, hang on a sec, you're spending a couple of £100, £350, £400 a month on the car. Then you've got the insurance on top of that car. And so you're spending a huge amount of money on that car where you could potentially buy something older and use the money that you're saving on that for good use and good purposes, whatever that may be. But I think it kind of brings up that question of kind of excess and what we have. So I think it brings up those kind of questions. But as well, I think you also kind of see the very obvious things in terms of Christianity, in terms of restoration and things like that. I've taken kind of something that's old, that's seemingly dead, that's got no life in it whatsoever, and then restoring it and renewing it into something beautiful and amazing. You wouldn't even know that it was stuck in a field for 20, 30 years or something like that. And I think that kind of brings up a lot of stuff we believe as Christians, that, you've been taken from death to life. You've been taken from the domain of darkness into the kingdom of light. And that transfer that's taken place, and God is restoring and renewing your life so you look more and more like Christ and all this type of stuff. When I watch these types of shows, I always get like a bit of a fresh appreciation. It's not like a crazy thing that takes place, but you kind of get something in your mind of, oh, this is what's actually God's doing to us as a people, individually and corporately as the church. And I think that always kind of comes through in these types of shows.
I agree. That was a nice little preach, that.
I know. You got nothing else you want to add?
I don't know if I do. I think that is the obvious link, the restoration that we have in Christ, and that we're not finished. We are new creations in Christ, but we're a work in progress as well.
You'd recommend this, yes.
If you like cars and you like American cars, it would make sense. But as we've both said, I would maybe start with Rust Valley Restorers and see how you get on.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining us today on Streams. And if you do end up watching Car Masters Rust to Riches, we'd love to know your thoughts. Please let us know. And if there's any other show that you think we should check out for a future episode, then also you can get in touch by simply emailing us at info@gnba.net. That's info@gnba.net. If you've enjoyed this episode, please be sure to follow the podcast and leave us a good review on your favorite podcast platform, or share it with other people, because it really does go a long way in getting it out there, getting it further than where it is now. But that's all the time we have. But join us next time. See you then.